I would like to share a little snippet of Melanie's bio because it's just so awesome. Melanie Yazzie is a professor of art at the University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado. As a printmaker, painter, and sculptor, Melanie's work draws upon her rich Dene Navajo cultural heritage, and her work follows the Dene dictum, walk in beauty, literally creating beauty and harmony. As an artist, she works to serve as an agent of change by encouraging others to learn about social, cultural, and political phenomena shaping the contemporary lives of Native peoples in the U.S. and beyond. Her work incorporates both personal experiences as well as the events and symbols from Dene culture, and her work is informed and shaped by personal experience as well. So, mahalo, help me welcome Melanie to our podcast, and thank you.
Thank you, everybody, here at the Donkey Mill and here in this beautiful land, Aina, correct? I really appreciate you hosting myself and my beautiful husband. I want to thank Rebecca Ramos for approaching the Donkey Mill with this amazing project. I want to thank Catherine Prose, who's in Wichita Falls, Texas, who initiated the idea for this exhibition and to bring light to the issue of murdered and indigenous women, of people just not knowing about this, and all the different artists who are in the project. I'm honored to show my work with them, and this evening I would love to share where I'm coming from, something about me. I have a video to start with that a young Navajo woman put together a couple of years back, and what's really moving for me about it is my mother, who is now passed, is a part of this video, and I really wanted to share it with you all. And then afterwards I'll wrap it up with a PowerPoint speaking about just my my travels and how I've come to be in this world, and so.
Kwaya da nash ahande tsaholia ishlane nash aho ahat ensende tsatotlish nijunigo ntschago ayo shliat ehonseno ado khashe shlkholne ede do tsahat eda do shlkhot eda hawano lasissa adon sich adala Besin na hashte ze sisa na long besin na shiene itcha.
My name's Melanie Yazzie, and I'm Dene, and I currently am the head of printmaking here at the University of Colorado at Boulder. I come from northeastern Arizona. As I grew up, I always loved making art, and my mother was an artist in college. She made jewelry, she did drawings and paintings, and it was something really important to her. But both my parents chose to go into education. My parents were teaching Many Farm School area, and there was a Montessori school. I was enrolled in a class there, and I remember that was the first time I made a small painting.
That day she came back that evening and she said, "Look what I made." And then we said, "Wow, look at that elephant, even his tail is showing, and the ears and the trunk," and we were so proud of her. And then she said, "Mom, you can have it." So ever since then I kept it and reframed it, and I think it's been framed several times with the wear and tear on it. Every day since then I want to do art.
I think that time period really marks something in me of like what it meant to be an artist.
We knew that she was going to be an artist because she always did something with watercolors and finger painting stuff, all those artwork that she does. The only thing we said to her is very expensive to be an artist, and she didn't hear us. She just
my sophomore year in high school, I went to Westtown School on the East Coast, about 40 minutes out of Philadelphia. And it was there, my senior year, I allowed myself to take an art class. In that art class, I started making prints and learning about printmaking. I really wanted to go to art school. I was working a job on the reservation, and I earned some money to buy a plane ticket to go to Mexico. And at the same time, my parents were enrolling me at Arizona State University, and we had paid tuition, found me an apartment, gone through that whole process. And like 2 weeks before school started, I said to my parents when we were buying books, I said, we have to return these books. We have to, like, I can't do this. And they were just like, what? And I said, I bought a plane ticket to Mexico. I'm going to go live in Mexico this year. And I can't do this. And my parents were furious, and they didn't understand it, but it was really important for me to do that. I think during that year, I really learned the importance of education, the importance of following things that are important to you as an artist, also the importance of identity.
I think that's all you can do is just encourage your daughters or son that wants to go into whatever they want to go, is just encourage them. I think that's what we did. And even though we didn't have a lot of monies, we always went and bought things that they would really need. But she was on honors, where she went to school with scholarship, so we didn't have to worry to pay for her. And she went through all the school year being an honor student.
I was teaching one seminar a year at CU in Boulder, and Melanie was a graduate student. So she was, she was Melanie. I mean, and she was so great. One of the wonderful things I loved about her is, a lot of the students were Anglo, or non-native, and they were, kind of intrigued with what Native people thought and so on. And whenever anybody, was sort of putting Natives down, Melanie was always very clear about, don't do that, and here's all the good stuff and so on. But if somebody idolized them or idealized Natives, she would come up with some story about some relative of hers who was a mess. I mean, she always had a wonderful balance between that. She didn't play to Anglo's expectations at all.
I never thought I'd be teaching in a university setting. I strangely assumed that if I went into the arts, that I would just be living with my parents and making art in their garage. And when I had that in my mind, I thought, I'm going to be out on the reservation. I won't have any access to all these chemicals or all of this fancy stuff. So I focused on low-tech printing method.
I feel like I've learned so much from Melanie in so many different ways because we've been friends now for so long. I've seen her professional career develop. I've learned a lot about the way she moves through the world and how she can connect with people in a really positive way. She's sharing deep and meaningful things, but one of the main lessons I think she's sort of taught me is when you have something important to say that might be heavy or unpleasant, if you just come out and say it in a too harsh of a way or too direct of a way, people tend to shut down and not hear your message. But if you approach something with compassion and humor and a more palatable approach, people are more receptive to your message.
Something that I've learned from Melanie is to have what I would call like a spirit of giving. Like I've always been really impressed with her kindness and her willingness to share her artwork. Like she will just like give you an art piece and say, here, this is for you. And that's made me, I think about that more often and be more kind and open and generous with my own artwork to share that with a lot of other people.
I was finishing my undergrad at the University of Arizona, and I ran a nonprofit art gallery, and many people in the university sphere of art and also just local Tucson artists were involved in this alternative art gallery, and Melanie's students in particular were involved in having shows at the Shane House. So it was about 2004, we both were smitten at about the same time. It was pretty fast. We got married within a year.
It was really nice because I've been married twice before, and I thought, maybe I just shouldn't be in this whole thing called marriage. And we met, we became good friends, and one thing led to another, and it was wonderful.
As a gallery, normally artists will just bring their work in and we would sell it and that's it. But with Melanie, we have more of a collaborative relationship. Melanie and I have collaborated on the jewelry and the scarves and the fabrics and promotion, really, and sculpture, and kind of bringing her vision to life. So we've learned a lot from each other about how she communicates, how we present things and want to show her work in the best light and put her on an international stage, because she really is an international artist. She's Navajo, and that's super important to her, and it's an amazing culture, and it's informed so much of her work. But as she's said, there's certain things she can't portray because that would be sort of against her teachings with her grandmother, saying, you can insinuate things, you can imply things with your art, but don't be too direct about anything that's culturally sensitive. So she imbues so many things with all of these concepts that may not appear to have that depth, but when you start talking to her or you really start sitting with something and looking at the prints, and they're layered. So everything to me in her artwork is layered in technique, it's layered in substance, it's layered in messaging. So there's a whole lot going on there. And she's been so supportive of us. It's just been incredible. She's such a genuine, amazing person and really cares about us as a gallery, but us as people. So it just is a different level.
I think what I want people to come away from with the artwork is a story, something that they didn't expect. I think there's a lot of preconceptions about my work when people first see it. And then when they meet me and hear the story about the piece, they start to see how many different things connect with each other. And they're like, wow, it's more than just this thing we thought it was. And I've learned all these other things about who you are and where you're coming from just from hearing your talk or doing a print project, because oftentimes when I'm doing an exhibition, I'll do an interaction thing where either I do a lecture, I'll do a print workshop or an art workshop with the community, and then people come to that and learn something. They'll learn how to make some of the things I do, and then they come away thinking, oh my God, it's really not that easy, and it's really hard. And I started to be able to tell my story, and I'm like, yes, everybody has a story, and that's what this is about, is to empower people to find their own story, to make their own story. And I think if everybody was allowed to tell their own story, there wouldn't be so many angry people that feel left out or feel that they can judge other people, because everybody's sharing story and comes together, and there's a meeting at that place when people can share a story. So my hope is that when people see the work and hear the stories, that there's a connection that's made, an understanding about who I am, who my community is, and for that matter, who they are, gives them permission to look at themselves.
It has meaning to her, so she usually talks about it the way she feels about it. I always told her that, well, the Indian people always, draw the different things like real things, but this is my art, she says. I learned that every individual have their own art, the way they do it, the way they think about it, the way they feel about it.
The ceramic pieces that I make were inspired by childhood bullies. Because my dad was a principal and my mom was a teacher, recess was really scary because, some of the kids who'd get in trouble would come looking for us at recess. And so I started naming these animals after common Navajo names. I didn't really ever use the same name as bullies, but
it was a way to sort of empower myself and to reclaim that memory and put it into a good light. So the names of the sculptures are pretty funny, like Joe Baker's looking for a rich girlfriend, or Thelma Joe thinks she's cool, she lives in Gallup. They just have funny names that take common Navajo names and then common things that we know at home to put the title together. And the prints that I make are inspired by plants, weavings. There is also drawings of petroglyphs from different locations. So I'll have a series of petroglyphs in the artwork that I make, and then I'll print a map form on top of the petroglyph images. And again, each thing is about land, placement of who we are as Indigenous people, and what's important to us. A lot of the works that I have riverways and byways, and that refers to the digestive tract, but also highways and rivers, places that I've traveled to.
I think a lot of people communicate in different ways. Some people choose to communicate visually through artwork. And so I think having something to say, knowing how to say that through your artwork, and having a voice that can touch people and can create some kind of response in people, I think is important for being an artist.
The motivation for my work most recently has been educating people about what it's like to live as a type 2 diabetic. The work has the numbers in them, and it helps me have a conversation with people who have a family member who's living with diabetes, somebody who is a diabetic, somebody who's a caretaker for somebody. There's a whole conversation in the numbers that happens that I feel is really important. And when I travel to different places, it seems to be a common illness within Indigenous communities and also in the wider community. And so it helps me connect with people. I think what was happening a lot of the time is that I'm living with this illness, and those numbers control my life. And so for the longest time, I'd just be making work and kind of keep it hidden. And then I realized that part of becoming strong with it and learning how to live with it was to be able to put it into the work and be able to share it with people. And it's been very successful, because once I tell people and they start looking at the numbers, people who have diabetes will look at it and say, this is a really good day. Or, oh my gosh, what happened? This is 192 or 142, your numbers are high. But here, what's that mean? And then we have this conversation about how a day may have started, or how something stressful happened, and then I checked my blood sugar and it was higher. So it's a whole different language that happens within my work in relationship to people who know or are learning about being type 2 diabetic. And what's also always present in the work is the animal imagery. I love animals, I'm really close to them, and I feel that putting them into the work and sharing them with people brings out a whole nother story about how we live with animals, and how animals can take a huge amount of stress off of you as a person.
She has so much to say, and she's been all over the world. My dad always laughs anytime he answers the phone and it's Melanie. Okay, what airport are you in? And she's usually somewhere far away, doing some awesome adventure, interacting with Native artists, Indigenous artists around the world, or being asked to speak or teach in France or Japan or somewhere exotic and awesome.
When I go back to thinking about growing up on the res and doing what we did, that it grounds me in each place I go. The artwork ties into meeting artists and connecting with people on so many different levels. And I've traveled to Russia, to Siberia, to Japan, to Korea. I've taught in France. I've done projects in Germany. I've traveled to many places, and it's all because of the artwork and the connecting with people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, because through family history and stories we meet, and then locations we have in common. We then form this relationship that's like very family-like and very much about heart and soul.
A true artist, in my mind, is someone who's compelled and is almost compulsive about needing to express themselves, either visually or through music or filmmaking or whatever. There's a drive in true artists. They have something to say, they have something to share, they have something that's innovative.
From her, I've learned just having an attitude of like hard work, really putting a lot of time into art making and just constantly making art. Like, she is making art all the time. And so I think from her, I've learned just whether I'm successful or not successful doesn't matter, just to continually always be making art.
A true art, I think it's what they feel and what they want to put on paper, what they want to put in ceramics, what they want to put in their art pieces. It's kind of like a memory of something that they happened to them.
I have to create a beautiful world in my art. If I made work about all the bad things that happened, like, to carry that sadness and that history is very difficult. And so I make beautiful works to carry myself into a beautiful way of thinking and being, because that's important. So again, I acknowledge the bad that is in the world. And in my work, I'm trying to create a beautiful place, a place of calm, and a place that I can grow and become stronger to teach my students and to work in the communities that I'm working in. When I say that I'm a contemporary Native artist, in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm Navajo, I'm telling my story, and I'm not using all the images that people would think that I should be using. I'm finding my own path and my own symbols that represent all the things that are traditional or are from home. My name is Melanie Yazzie, and I am of the Saltwater clan, born for the Bitterwater clan. My maternal grandfather's clan is Edgewater. My paternal grandfather's clan is Red Streak into the Water. In this way, I am a beautiful Diné woman. Ehiha. I'm the head of printmaking at the University of Colorado at Boulder, and I just said this in the video, and that's the image of one of the paintings, earliest paintings that my parents have of me working. And this piece was a piece I did when I was in graduate school. I did a series of prints where I printed on wrapping paper, and people said, like, what's the significance of the wrapping paper? And I said, well, people want to wrap Native people in this image, these stereotypes of what they think a Native person should look like. So I'm printing on the wrapping paper to drive home that idea of making something beautiful and putting it out there, and then putting some of these stereotypical images onto the wrapping paper. So this next image is an earlier piece that I did where I was traveling to different schools, and for some reason, because the month of November is always like, oh, we need a Native American to come speak to children at schools because of Thanksgiving. So I would get all these invitations, and then I would talk to them about stereotypes and how we didn't want to be portrayed in this way. And then, of course, I went to school, and after I did my presentation, the teacher handed out these little handouts, and it said, circle the Indians that look the same. And I was like, oh, so I let the lesson go, and then I took that handout home, and I thought, how can I drive this home that this is not something I want out there? So then I put an image of myself in grade school inserted it into the screen print, and it helped. This is a piece that I did where I screen printed my certificate of Indian blood onto bluebird flour sacks. We use the flour sacks at home for ceremony when we make fry bread and share food, and so I made this large quilt with the bluebird flour sacks and my certificate in Indian blood, and it has mapping, and mapping shows where we come from, land-based, as Indigenous people, we've pretty much lived in different places. So a lot of times I'll use the mapping as an entryway to open the conversation. In the early days of my work, some of the works were very confrontational, and I found that when I was speaking to a group of people, the ones that I really wanted to connect with were like, oh my God, angry Native, need to leave, and then they'd leave. And then I'd be left with my people, all of you that support me, and then I'd think, how am I going to reach the ones who leave the room? So then I thought, you know, that whole idea of the honey and that brings people. So I thought, well, if I make the work educational and playful, then they're going to stay thinking like, she doesn't know what she's doing, she's all happy, and then and then I'd unpack all the colonialism. And then we like learned some things, and then they were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that you all lived on a reservation, and I didn't know that you guys spoke English. Oh my gosh, the US government forced that on you. I'm like, yes, that's why my English is so good. So anyhow, so all these earlier works really were, I feel, in your face, and I love these pieces, but it also just, it was difficult to reach certain audiences. And so part of tonight's talk was I wanted to share some of these earlier pieces with you. This was a piece that was about food, and so I did an image of butchering sheep, because that's what we do at home and we share, and how to make leg sausage. So that little thing is like a sheep stomach, and how you make leg sausage, which is really important to us. I was invited to do a project where everyone got 4 feet of wall, and it was like up 15 feet. And so I asked my grandmother if I could use her skirts. So I had the skirts and then images of Navajo women on the skirts printed on newsprint, and then framed it with the bluebird flower sacks to, again, educate people about our matrilineal society and how women in our community are the speakers and are important. That's what this piece was about. A lot of my paintings are self-portraits. They show images of the, I guess, the spinal background, in the early 1990s, I lived in Santa Fe, and one night when I was driving home from my studio, I was hit head-on by a drunk driver, and it really messed up my back, and I had to like focus a lot on healing and being strong, and so a lot of the pieces have that image of the backbone. I also traveled to a lot of places where fish is served, and I noticed like the column with the fish was really important. And traditional Navajos like don't eat fish. Like if you meet Navajos that like are very traditional, they're like, oh, don't eat that. But my parents grew up in different places, and fish was really important. And my dad was like, it's good for you. And my father's side of the family is from Red Lake, New Mexico, and there's a lake next to my grandma's house. So we used to go fishing when I was a kid. And I remember we used to get the aluminum cans, and we would put the fishing line on the end, and then we would do this and throw it in and put corn and catch catfish and trout, and then bring that home. And then we would put it on the end of a stick, and then when we'd see the stick moving with the can, we knew that we caught something, and then we'd go get it and bring it in. So even though like I'm Navajo and it's something that's not traditional, like I really relate to people who come from where you all come from, where there's fresh fish, and I love it. Like I just can't get enough of it. So you see the images, self-portrait pieces. I think I was somewhere and someone said, is that the cross? And I said, well, the cross for me is like the 4 directions. And so when I see it, I think of that. And I also think of my mother grew up in boarding schools, and in the boarding school they had Catholicism and different Christian ways, and so she collected a lot of crosses. And when I see the cross, it represents my mom, and just that maybe not a great part of history for a lot of Indigenous people, but symbolically for me, it was something that my mom just, it was her comfort and something that she looked towards as she grew up. And so oftentimes it will show up in my work, and I'll say to people, it represents my mom. Like I know the other things it carries, but that was an important image for her, and so I put it in the work. Some of the self-portraits are, like this is a painting of myself, feeling in a sense as a woman helpless at times, where we use our arms for a lot of work, but at times when things are happening in the world, you just feel like your arms are not there, and you have to think of story and things to give you strength. And I just, again, wanted to go through a lot of the images to share with you. This piece I made when I was in graduate school. It was actually in my thesis exhibit, and it's called She Keeps Silent. It's a self-portrait of me, and I have myself bound, and I remember when I made this piece, I thought, I'm gonna bind myself and then paint like this X on me, and she's gonna keep my silence. Once I made her, then I'm gonna speak about all the things that we don't speak about. Things like in this exhibit, what happened with women, the alcoholism, the drugs that are in our community. Like a lot of it when I was growing up, it was very shameful, and people would say, don't talk about that. And you know, as a good young woman, you stay quiet, you do, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna make her, and she's gonna keep my silence. I'm not going to be quiet anymore. And if someone says, how come you're not like quiet and nice? I'm like, I made a piece about that. She's out there keeping it, but I'm going to tell you stuff. So these are some early lithographs that I made that are talking about the silent prayers that I live with, and an image of like a little figurine that we use for healing. And then I put fingerprints all over it, because in early days when a lot of our people could not write, they used their fingerprint to sign legal documents. And I remember when I was first in Aotearoa, the island of the long white cloud in New Zealand, we were speaking about the Treaty of Waitangi, and they said, you know, all of our treaties were signed with the moko, tamoko. That was their signature, and they said, in some cases, they use their fingerprint too. And I said, yeah, like there's a lot that we have in common, and I find that in most of our communities, there's these different connections to history and how we go through things. And this series was all about healing the past, thinking about different things that we encounter, and dreams. This piece, a lot of my pieces will also have numbers that talk about diabetes, but also about our certificate of Indian blood and how they keep track of indigenous people. So there's this whole counting that happens in the work. And then with this one, there's an image of Sue Pearson's ancestor is there, image of the land, and then my friends in Aotearoa doing a haka, of like the challenge when you're brought onto Marae or into the community, of them saying, if you're coming here for bad, we're protecting our women and our community. And so there's a mixture of things in a lot of the work I make, and all of it is telling stories. And some of you, my good friends here, I've shared stories about my mokos and how it's tied to the land and all the mana that is coming through at like the work I do. I think when we were together the other evening, I said to Rebecca and her beautiful Tim, I said, I'm like this little idiot that's just like wandering around, really lucky. Like I meet different people and then I end up here. And Miho, your father, oh my God, I have like idolized him for years and years. And I just was like, one day I'll meet this man and I'll go to Anderson Ranch and take a workshop, or I'll find him, and like an idiot, I had no idea. And I'm coming here, and then my good friend Matt Christie is like, don't you know that guy? I'm like, are you like, that's like, he was like, yeah. And I thought, this life path is like protecting me and guiding me, and I don't like, that's why I say to my students and people I work with, like, follow your heart, like, make the work. Follow it, and like, the work was, Catherine Prose said, let's make a project about these indigenous women and their stories. let's invite artists, let's find a place to exhibit it. And I thought, oh my gosh, Rebecca Ramos has to be in this project because she will bring like this heart and this power to it. And then look, she brings it here, and I meet all of you, and then someone I've like wanted to meet for years is just like here, and I'm just like, and everyone's like, didn't you know? And I'm like, no, I'm an idiot. Like, I just like, I came for this, for Rebecca, Miho, and Mina, and just, and your little pig. Like, but this is what I mean when I say make your work out of like love and tell your stories. Like, just tell it, no matter how small it is. It's treasure. Use it in your work, and just go where your heart takes you. I say to people, because people will say to me like, oh, you're such a little schmoozer. You went to New Zealand, you went to Russia, you did this. And I'm like, no. And they're like, how'd you go there? I said, oh, I was helping this lady do all this work, and this Russian guys came, and they were going to print in Santa Fe, and then they didn't want to work with a Navajo woman. They wanted to work with a Native man, and they said, so what happened? I said, well, they were all in the parking lot smoking, and I went out there and looked around, and then walked back in, and then all the Russian guys came in, and the translator said, they want to know what you were looking for. And I said, well, I went out there to look for these strong Russian Indian guys who wanted to print, and I just saw a bunch of women smoking. And they were like, that was us. We're ready to work. I said, well, you don't want to work with me. And like, what the hey? And they were like, we're ready to work. So then we got to work, and then it turned out like embarrassing. These guys were amazing artists from Russia. And then they were like, you treated, like you told us, you schooled us on that day. And I said, well, what was I going to do? They told me I had to teach you. So I was like, let's just shame them. So they got in there, and then I ended up in Russia, and I said, there was no like schmoozing or anything there. It was shaming those boys to come into the shop and work. And then after we learned all these things together, they realized, like, holy crap, like, she knows what she's doing, and maybe she should come to Russia. And so then I ended up there. Different things with France. I was doing a workshop at RISD. A director of a school came to the workshop and said, can we come be in your workshop? I said, sure. It's only supposed to be like 2 hours. This workshop went for 6 hours. And then afterwards, the director came up. She said, do you know who I am? I said, no, but you guys had fun. She said, yes, we did, and now we want you to come to France. And she said, our classes last for 6 hours for 3 weeks. So we see you can do it. So could you come? I was like, sure. So that's, again, I say to my students, work hard, put a good heart forward, volunteer to help out, tell your story, be humble, and like go see these places. Treasure your tools. Treasure that space before you start creating. Love mixing the inks and putting it out. Think about how this is going to share who you are and where you're coming from, because it's valuable. And no matter how important you are, sometimes you have to build an art building. And you have to meet with architects. And do you know how to do that? No, because this Navajo girl knows how to help others butcher a sheep. But to do this, like, no. But I learned. I spent a lot of time there. My reward was to be invited by Miley Andrade to Hawaii. And to be with her in her school with her students, and learning about Akua inks with her, and then going from that to Estonia and showing a project there in Estonia with different artists, and then being at an opening and seeing this beautiful woman, Karen Ermias, and saying, wow, what a cool leather coat you have. You're so awesome. And she was like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm Melanie Yazzie. And if I was skinny, I would wear that too. And it would look really cool. And she was like, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, it's really embarrassing. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm going to find a Starbucks and get my city mug. And she said, I'm doing the same thing. So then we did Starbucks and got the city mug. And then I said, where are you from anyway? And she goes, oh, I'm from Canada, but I run a printmaking program in Dubai. So we would love for a project of yours to come to Dubai. We teach all women. Would you like to send some of your projects to us? I said, yes, that would be great, because my projects come with all these other young artists that are making great work, and their work needs to be shown in Dubai, and you should have them. And she said, yeah. So then I went to openings and I met other people. And again, all the time, just like sharing these print exchanges and these projects with people, having panels and talking to different people, sharing all these things that we do as printmakers, as artists, getting together and saying like, hey, how did you make that printing press? And Alan Takish says, my grandfather makes these. I'm like, who's your grandpa? He was like, oh, we're the Takish family. I'm like, do you guys know how to cook? He was like, yes, we know how to cook. I'm like what? And then we talk about food, and then all of a sudden I'm at Takish with the family and with people at Tamarind, and we're making story and eating food, and then like this is how it happens. I always tell my students, this is how you schmooze, like food, work hard, make prints, meet people like Karen Kuntz, freaking amazing. And then all along you're doing these things. Our school is being built, and I'm meeting with these guys constructing things and saying, put this there, get on that ladder, put the lights in, make it best. Saying, hey, take a picture of me, it's almost done. Moving flat files, getting our exposure unit and our washout room ready. This is what I do at CU Boulder, is I'm running all of this. And so when I invite artists, I say to you, like, come, we have a beautiful print space, a building, we can exhibit the works, we can have exchange, and then I'll be doing that, and then fly off to Bristol, the United Kingdom, and do, my husband and I flew all night with this print exchange, and we thought we could get into the hotel, and they said, we don't do check-in till 3 o'clock. I'm like, it's 7 in the morning. They were like, yes, you can come back at 3. I said to Clark, let's take a taxi to school and hang this exhibit. So we went there, hung the exhibit, participated in an impact conference, met Paul Croft, who wrote a book on lithography, that guy, and his students. Then went back and went to Nebraska to see Karen Kuntz in her shop, did work with her. Always going down to Denver University to work with Catherine Chabon. These are in her shop. Flying up to Fairbanks, Alaska, working with Sonia Keller-Combs and the crew up in Fairbanks, making prints with them. And Sonia Keller-Combs is this amazing artist from Alaska, and she had gotten a grant for $50,000 for just her to just make work. And it was really beautiful because she used part of that grant to fly me to Fairbanks to do a printmaking workshop for all the young indigenous artists in the Fairbanks area. And so we made work together and again, shared story. One of the trips that we've also made was to spend 3 weeks in Venice. We got Sue Pearson, who's in this exhibit, to come to Venice with us. And we worked in this shop and rode the Vaporettos all over the city, and I made works about the Vaporetto routes all around town. And then back in the U.S. working with Michael Barnes at Northern Illinois University, where Delar is at, if she's still in Zoomlandia. And these are some of the prints that we did there with him. And I just think a lot of times when you go places, some of the most powerful things happen with students that you're working with. You see the work that they make, and then you want to support them because their mentors say, this one is here every Thursday helping us. And I'm like, this one I'm going to support. I'm getting all of those Christmas cards. Get back to work. But at each place we hang the work up and share story and work together and just keep making. This is artist residency at Kansas City with Miguel Rivera, who runs the program at Kansas City Art Institute. And this is Kara J., who we also went to grad school with. She was in the photography area. Yeah, and she met Miguel Rivera in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is a place that I lived in. And then we started this other project that's called Crossover, and did these collaborative works. And everywhere I go, like I'll travel. I went to work with a master printer at Crow Shadow in Pendleton, Oregon, and I said to the master printer, I've got 8 big plates, I want to print them. And he was like, you can print 1. I'm like, what? We drove 2 days and I packed up all these giant plates. And he said, well, we can only print 1 for the edition, or you could do this other thing and this and that. And I said, you know what, I'll just call Nicole Pietrantoni. So this is Nicole Pietrantoni, who's 2 hours north of Pendleton, Oregon. She runs her own print shop at Whitman College, and she said, me and my beginning students will print all those blocks for you. So then I spent the day with Nicole Pietrantoni and got the whole beginning class, and we printed all 8 of those blocks. Crazy, yeah. Don't hold this one back. This is an exhibit I had at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. It was amazing because the curator at the time selected like 81 of my pieces. They framed them, they put my ceramic pieces and the bronze pieces in the exhibit. And people always say like, oh, have you had a show in New York or in LA? And I'm like, yes, in both, but my most important exhibit was in Albuquerque. And they said, why? I said, because it's the closest one to home. And when we put the exhibit together, they said, we're not sure how many people will be able to come to the exhibit because we haven't really like featured a contemporary Native person here. We sent the announcements out. The night of the opening, we had over 750 people come to the opening. 90% were Native people. And they all said, this school has never really featured a Native person, and we wanted to see who this is. And I was like, heck yeah, we're here. And then, oh my gosh, this is the part I love about this exhibit, and which showed me, like, this was like a super coup for me. The Tamarind, which is like ultra super famous for lithography, is in Albuquerque across the street from UNM. They had their own opening that night. Partway through my opening, I see Rodney come through the door, Marjorie Devon, the whole crew came through, and I was like, I ran over, I said, hey, didn't you guys have an opening tonight? They said, we did. Nobody was there. They said, everyone was talking about you, so we decided to come over here. I was like, heck yeah! I was like, Bill Latuca, Rodney Hammond, Marjorie Devon. This was the old crew. It's turned over to a new crew. But that, for me as a printmaker and as an artist, that evening with all these indigenous people, with the Tamarind crew closing up their exhibit early to come to me, and I had gone through the Tamarind workshop in the summer, a couple of summers before that, so I knew them, and they just said, we wanted to be with you, Melanie. Like, we heard, and we thought, we'll come over and hang out with you. And I thought, that's what, like, that's a sign of success. When you're with Ohana, and you're in the land Aina, and you have mana, because you, like, carry these beautiful things forward. And that's why this exhibit that I had in Albuquerque was so important to me. These were a lot of the works that were in that exhibit. And this is how I work at home. I never just work on one thing. I work on many things. And I hand build, I can throw. And these are some of the works in my gallery. And this is where I come from. This is what grounds me. This is what I look to for inspiration. And this is what reminds me what's important in life. that stuff. And then good friends. This is Erica Walker at Nova Scotia School of Art and Design up in Halifax. Then going to Australia to work with Rodney Forbes at his school in Gippsland. And then lo and behold, we're at the museum, and my good friend Judy Watson, who's a printmaker, did all these etchings in the background. Always visiting art stores. So all you young artists, when you go to these art stores, get the credit card out and buy some nice tools. Because I have all these photographs of all these places I went to, and I was like freaking cheap. I was like, I can't afford that, I'm not gonna buy that. And then I go back and I look at these photos, and I'm like, I should have bought that set. I was in Australia, like, why did I had a credit card, I could have like paid $80 for those nice tools and had a great story. Now I just have a picture to show you. So I tell young people, go to these places, meet people who make tools, spend that money on that beautiful tool, because you're going to carry it with you. And when you're having a hard day, you're going to look at that tool and remember that trip, and it's going to carry you forward. Yeah, I have to show you the animals when I go places. Wombat. Make sure that when you travel to go for walks, do workshop with friends and family, meet the little ones. I always tell people, when people say, when you feel like you're making change, like when does that happen? I said, when I do story time with little ones and we make work with them, because then they see a real Native American. They don't see me with a headdress and, you know, playing a drum. They see me like this, and then I tell them, you're important. You make a work about what's important to you, and you be strong. And they're like, heck yeah. I'm like, yeah, make change. And they're like, yes. That's power. When you can tell a little one that, and you give them like belief in themselves, like, that's powerful. And of course, being in a beautiful studio, visiting people. Is it like getting through to all of you? I'm like trying to speed up. Oh my God, does this ever end? This is with Boulder Lions at Knoxville, Tennessee, who I swore in my early days I'd make him print for me, and he did. Bobby, if you're out there, thank you. Yeah, this was during pandemic. We went to Knoxville and printed with Bobby. I've done projects at the Denver Art Museum, and this was one of my largest artist residencies at the Colorado College in Colorado Springs. They gave me a giant studio space to work in, and I spent 6 weeks there, and they got this beautiful grant and gave me $25,000 to just buy materials and supplies to just work and work. And we put this amazing exhibit together, and they were amazing. And I always remember my dog, my home studio with my beautiful pink press. Thank you, Takesh. And my paintings, again, driving the idea home that I don't get precious about things. I just make and make and make, and create layers and layers and draw back into things. And I'm always telling my students, like, just make the work. Let it just come out of you. Don't stop. Because then when you get in this mode of just making and making, this energy of like talking to the work starts to come about. During pandemic, I started a series of houses. I'm up to like 1,500, but they're all these little houses that are prayers for the world and the community. And someone said, like, what's going to happen with these? I said, I don't know. I'm just driven to make these little houses and stack them and put them in piles, and then the meaning and what they're going to be is going to come later. I'm not sure what that is, but something is making me do this, and it's centering me, and I have to do it. So sometimes there are things that you have to do. Like, just know that it's coming from another place, that do it, and at some point, you'll know what that is. And recently we had exhibitions with Colorado printmakers, and we all came together to share, and we shared our work all over the Denver area. And then I always thank my students that I work with now, my grad students and undergrads, and the land that I live in Colorado, the animals, the walks I go on, and again, thinking of home. And that little girl did all this. Thank you so much. So if there's, let's see, if anybody has any questions, I can answer some questions. Miho, if anybody on Zoom asks the question, you can ask the question. Any comments or questions? Yes.
First of all, Melanie, thanks for coming, and congratulations for your position at the University of Colorado, Boulder. It's a new art department. Looks like you were there on the ground up.
Yes.
You helped design the print studio. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
a brand new art building. I haven't seen it yet.
You have to come.
Archives are there.
Yes, the university put together donations and funds and have collected the Shark Eye with Bud Shark, Barbara Shark, who work together with wonderful, beautiful artists like yourself. And it's now part of our collection. So that's part of our, if I need to look at any of your stuff up close, I can make an appointment with our museum and look at the work. But Bud and his family and their organization has given so much to our community. So, and our building was built 9 years ago, and I work hard to keep it beautiful and wonderful so that when all of you, if you're in the Boulder, Colorado area, you can come see me. I usually teach on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'm on the school website, and I welcome people to come visit and see the studio.
That was awesome.
Other comments or questions?
I was
Yes.
just wondering if we could maybe stop sharing, and then we could go full view,
So
and
we
if
can
you are
see you.
asking a
Oh,
question,
okay.
you can come
Oh,
sit next to Melanie.
okay. Stop share. Okay. Cool. Okay.
Well, the second.
Okay. Oh, second question. Second question.
I was wondering, I don't have the people on the computer.
Oh, maybe you should sit right here. Oh, please. Oh, because I did. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we're both on there.
I know.
Yeah.
Look at.
You're fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
Your energy shows right here and also in your art, in your artwork. And there's a lot of volunteer time I can see besides your studio time. So I appreciate you sharing all that. And what was my second question? Yes, you had a humble start. And what generation are you? Is it countable?
Many generations. Both my mom's parents didn't speak any English, and my dad's mom spoke English, and my parents were sent away to boarding school, and I think it was difficult for them when they were in school, and so when we were growing up, they wanted us to speak English. And I remember growing up, I always said, how come you didn't teach us Navajo? And I wish you did. And my mom said, we didn't want you to have a hard time. We had a hard time, and we wanted it to be easier for you.
So you grew up speaking English?
Yes, I grew up speaking English.
Yeah.
As a child, I lived with my grandparents, and they spoke Navajo, and I understood like at a child's level. And I think that's why when I look at children at times, I think there's such power in them because they don't know how beautiful that space of childhood is. And that time with my grandmother, who was a weaver, was so powerful. And being at home, herding sheep and following my grandma around as a weaver. Like, amazing, beautiful, beautiful part of my life.
Oh, so you had some exposure, yeah?
Yes,
Some weaving
exactly.
background.
All of that. Butchering.
And butchering too?
Yes.
I can share that. I was a butcher too.
Oh my gosh, it's funny, we were in the car today and we saw some goats and Rebecca's like, look at the goats. I'm like, I know, they look so yummy.
Yes.
It's a walking meal.
I feel the same way. Well, how difficult it is to, from your culture, to share the message. I know it's a sensitive thing. You cannot be so forward, and you cannot be so raw. You have to kind of make a happy place.
Yes.
And I think you found that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Did you see that? Wow. Oh my gosh. I don't know if Rebecca, can you come sit up here? Get up here. Everybody out there in Zululandia, I need you to see this beautiful friend of mine who is like goddess womanhood, who just made this project come together. This is Rebecca Ramos, everybody. She did a beautiful Dream Pocket project last night, which we all unknowingly came to, and we're all crying and sharing and sewing and eating, and you're amazing. And I want people at home to see you and know that you're real, because I think sometimes when I tell people like, oh, my friend is like so beautiful and so smart, and they're like looking at me like, really? I'm like, that's her. But would you like to share anything about the project with everybody? Like the prints that have been made and the donkey mill? That would be awesome.
Yeah. What can I share? Dream come true. Do you know? Being invited to the project by you.
And Catherine Prose.
And living through the process of finding the imagery and something that I could sustain doing, and retreating here to the Big Island to be with Nina and Ed, to recuperate from all sorts of things, and being supported to be who I am.
Yep.
And finding this place and saying, Nina, what if?
Yes.
What if we brought this here? Do you want to see? Yeah, and it's like that every moment.
I think with all of these print exchanges and projects that have heart, when you participate in them and you give your full heart and energy, you then reach out to your friends, and instead of being afraid of an exhibit happening, you're more about sharing that story and educating people about women who've been through a difficult time or are missing and their family members. And I can't thank everyone enough here for sponsoring the project, and those of you out in the world who are looking for organizations to support and keep going. It's places like the Donkey Mill. It's all of the staff, all of the community that need the support. And so give to places like this, because they are doing the hard work of keeping community together, sharing story, and making an impact. And my beautiful friend here, who is of heart, mind, and soul about educating people about the world, has introduced me to this place and unknowingly brought me to somebody I just admire so much. And then I meet all of you here tonight and hope to get to spend more time with each of you, and that you'll all come to Colorado at some point and make some work, or just have a coffee, you know? A tea.
Get a city mug together.
Go to Starbucks and get a city mug. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yes.
Thank you, Mina. Oh, now I'm starting to speak Spanish. Like my Navajo goes out the door, and then I'm like starting to speak Spanish. Sí, muchas gracias, amigos. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Y estoy hablando de mi corazón, mi estómago y mi mente. Digo a todos, ustedes aquí son llenos de amor y me encanta estar con todos ustedes aquí en Hawaii. Gracias. Buenas noches. Good night. Be brave. Come forward. Come on.
I'm trying to think of this. Is it anybody's birthday?
You know what is funny? But I'm gonna look it up because I don't want to mess it up. But I was thinking about this earlier, actually, and I don't do this.
Yes.
Sorry.
If you do it, no matter how you do it, I will return a song to all of you.
Oh.
Yes.
It
can be a children's song. It can be any song. But the reason I asked this is when I went to Aotearoa, we had to share song, and whenever a speaker would speak, they would then follow with the song so that the song told the ancestors that what that person said is true and should be heard. And we're in this place of greatness, and so I'm like, I need to ask for a song.
I was going to do it behind this tree.
You can do it! And then I will offer my song to all of you.
Okay. I hope my phone doesn't like blink. Yeah, it's only mahalo.
That's
so
fine.
Just to express mahalo and thanks for this moment being together. So here we go. Yeah, here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8. No, here we go.
Because I'm going to finish with my song for all of you. commencement ceremony when I was really young. We had to stay up all night to grind corn. And our friend said, you know, if I teach you the song, maybe we can stay awake. And when I first went to New Zealand in 1995, we were being welcomed onto the marae, and they said to a group of 45 indigenous contemporary artists, we need somebody in your group to speak for the group, and then we need a song from the group. We're all from different native nations. We all stood outside the marae, and then we said, oh, Rick Bartow, you do the speech. And everyone said, what song should we sing? And out of all these contemporary native artists, everyone said, let's sing Home on the Range. And I was like, what? And they said, it's the only song we all know, but we have to sing a song, like it's part of the way. And I said, we can't sing that. Like, I waited all my life to be invited to something like this. And I said, I have this song that I learned when I was young, and it'll be better than that. I haven't sung it since I was like 15, but I'll share it. And this is what I bring to all of you. And all of you here at the Donkey Mill, thank you for having me. All of you in the community, this is for you.